Welcome back to the channel, and we're just a few hours away from the first day of the Grand National meeting, and I thought I'd give out some of my final selections, some of the market movers, and just keep you informed on what's going on, starting off with the Novice Chase, the first race, and Warlord has been oh so weak in the market. He's out to 7-2 for this race. Untitled on the other hand, he's been strongly supported into 11-4 in a race that's very hard to weigh up in earnest. I think Pic D'orhy is probably the best horse in the race. Official ratings says he is. He's rated 154, which isn't the best in the world. It probably shouldn't be winning you a grade 1 at the end of the day, but he's the solid horse. He's had plenty of starts over fences. When he jumps well, he jumps very well. He can make a few mistakes, but if Harry Cobden can get him into a good rhythm early on, I think he'll be ridden prominently enough. I think he'll be a tough enough one to get past over the 2.5 mile trip. Warlord, again, he has been weak in the market, but if his form is strongly enough, he was fourth in the Arkle. A step up in trip should suit as well. He was kind of ridden to stay that day, but he was finishing strongly enough at the end, having been prominently enough as well. That wasn't a bad run. And River comes into this with a progressive profile. Won his last 4 starts, 2 of them have been chases, and he jumps very well for the Nick Kent team. Charlie Hammond taking the ride. It's a big ride for him. He won at Wetherby so impressively last time, but again he's only got a rating of 144, so both River and Warlord do have a lot to find with Pic D'orhy, who definitely does set the standard but probably isn't open to as much improvement of the others. Of the others in the market, Gin and Lime, that's received some support, I should say, for Henry de Bromhead and Rachel Blackmore. Good connection, but I just think even though this horse gets weight all round, I think she might not be up to winning. She's been somewhat erratic at some of her jumping, and I think there's other horses open to more improvement and already a better standard. So summing up this race is a tough one for me. I think Pic D'orhy has won me money plenty of times, so he'd be the one I'd just be siding with at the prices, although I probably wouldn't be strong enough fancy to tip it out to other people. But it'll be a good race nonetheless. Now the 220s race is a race that I do have a strong opinion on. Pied Piper, even money. I think it's a very good bet. I think he's the class horse in the race. The 3 starts over hurdles, the 2 wins, and then a 3rd in the Triumph. And it's always tough weighing up the Triumph form and the form of the Boodles. But for me, I think if Brazil ran in the Triumph hurdle, he wouldn't be finishing 3rd close to Vauban and Phil Daw. I think Vauban, Phil Daw and Pied Piper, they're both the 3 best juvenile hurdlers, and they'll win races wherever they go, especially if they don't take on each other. And they don't today, it's just Pied Piper. So I think Davy Russell in the saddle, if he's recovered from his Cheltenham exertions, this horse will have a very good chance of winning this race. Brazil is the danger, but not for me. Now on to the 255, the Betway Bowl Chase, and again Protectorate was 3rd in the Gold Cup, which does read well, but at the end of the day he was only 3 or 4 lengths off finishing 7th behind a Stallion for Longe. It was a weirdly run race. He came from the back, which might not have been the best position to come from in fairness, but I just think the bare result probably is a little bit better than it actually is when you look into it. Conflated Fell last time isn't the most convincing horse in the world, but was very good on his penultimate start in the Irish Gold Cup. A repeat of that, I'd see him go very close home, but you just have a concern over a horse that fell just over a couple of weeks ago, backing it up at Aintree. I'm going to play 2 horses in this race at big prices taking on the field. I think Elderado, Allen and Royal Pagaille for Venetia Williams and the Tizard team. I think they're both decent and a value at 13-2 and 8-1. I'll be playing both of them each way, and I think there's going to be an upset in this race. If you look at some of the horses shorter in the betting, Kenboy doesn't inspire much confidence. He was terrible the last day in the Irish Gold Cup. He has been freshened up since and has won this race in 2019, I think it was, but he doesn't inspire much confidence. Neither does Clanders Obo, who was behind Royal Pagaille and Elderado Allen on his last start, and he was well beaten by both of them. I see Elderado Allen and Royal Pagaille potentially beating him again, so I'm going to take two horses at bigger prices against the field. Now the 330 isn't the race that I have the strongest view on at all. It's Epatante and Zana here. They're the 2 that should be really between them 2 horses. Both of them step up in trip, 2.5 miles for the first time. Now I've always thought that Zanahiyr would suit this step up in trip, but watching the champion hurdle after the last, it was Epatante who did make the mistake. Zanahiyr got upsides the mare, but then Epatante, she went again and was pulling away from Zanahiyr at the line, so maybe the step up in trip won't be too much of a problem for Epatante. It's going to be hard, and it'll depend what conditions are come half three. Apparently there's been a little bit of rain around Aintree, so I'll just wait until the off for my final selections. But I think it's between them two. It's tough to split them. And the outsider, Guard Your Dreams, I think I'd give him an each-way squeak. He wasn't the best at Fontbell last time, but he has previously had some good form, especially when winning the Unibet International Hurdle at Cheltenham. That was over 2 miles, but he does have some good form over 2.5 miles behind Buzz and Song for Someone last season. And I think this horse at 25-1 could outrun his odds, but it's a race that doesn't really interest me too much. The next is the 405, the Fox Hunters Open Hunters Chase, and it's where amateur riders get a spin over the national fences, so it'll be a good watch either way. And I put up this horse at 33-1 last night. Is into 25, and it's stand up and fight for JP McManus, who I think might have a decent enough day. Hopefully not with Brazil. We'll hope Pied Piper does the business there, but this horse does have a very interesting profile. He's got form over the cross-country fences, which is somewhat translatable to the Aintree fences, so I don't think that's any harm. He was 6th at Punchestown, over 3 miles, 1 furlong on heavy ground, and he was right up there with the pace. He was given a change of tactics, a prominent ride, and that seemed to do the trick. I mean, albeit he did finish 6th in the end, he tired late home, but turning in with 2 to jump, he had every chance, and he just got tired late home against some good enough horses in Midnight Maestro and Shady Operator, so that's not a bad run whatsoever. And if you can back that up under a positive ride, I think that's the key. Get him jumping early on, and I think it'll be a tough one to get past if he's near enough the front. He had a recent spin in a point-to-point under the rider that's keeping the ride today, so that can't be a bad thing, freshening him up and get him 100% race fit for this one. So I think he'd have a decent chance at 25-1 in the Fox Hunters. Now we'll move on to the 440, which again is a very interesting race, and it's again I'm going to be looking for one at a big price. It's not the strongest fancy in the world, but I think Thyme White would have a pretty decent chance. I was at Doncaster the day he won off a mark of 134 on soft ground, and I think that little bit of juice in the ground could be the key to this horse. He was very good that day under Bryony Frost, who gets back on board today, and I think the Bryony Frost factor is the key to this horse running well. She'll get him jumping very nicely early on, probably tracking the pace, jumping well, and I think he might be able to stay there under Bryony Frost and maybe run into a place. There's loads of places being paid out, 5-6 places, I'm pretty sure. So I think Thyme White is a decent enough bet at 16-1. I don't know how he got beat at Ascot the last day. He was evens favourite, and he was jumping brilliantly off the home bend, and he just seemed to find nothing. I'm putting that down to perhaps the good ground. Maybe he just couldn't quicken off that pace. Prefers getting his toe in a little bit, and I think this big field handicap or suit has been placed at the Cheltenham Festival twice in big field hurdle. Well, he's ran in it twice. He hasn't placed yet, but he's been midfield on both starts, so I think he's used to the hustle and bustle of a big race like that, and I don't think it'll be a problem. The big handicap, 16-1, Paul Nicholls, hoping a big festival for him after he did somewhat bypass Cheltenham, so I think he's one to keep an eye on. And then in the mare's novice hurdle, I was looking through this race and I couldn't find anything at a shorter price in the bet, and they all have question marks over them, but I think I found one at 50-1, and I'm actually pretty confident on this horse at 50-1. It's called Nell's Bells, goes for Donald McCain Jr. and Peter Kavanagh, and I think at 50-1 this horse has a brilliant chance, to be fair. He's had 3 runs in bumpers. The first one was 4th at Newcastle, where she was probably too far back early on and could just never really land a blow, but she did some eye-catching late work at Newcastle and stayed on strongly enough into 4th, although beaten a long way. The next one was much more impressive at Carlisle, where she absolutely hosed up by 17 lengths in the end. She couldn't be more impressive. Eased down at the end as well, and beating a horse called All for Glory, who actually really opposes today, and they're the same price in the market, which I can't understand for the world of me, because All for Glory was beaten 17 lengths, and there was no excuse for her that day. So I think Nell's Bells is definitely the value. Her latest one was in Cheltenham, where she was beaten a long way in the listed contest, won by Mullenbeg, I think it was in the end. Yeah, Mullenbeg won that very impressively, but all the horses came from the back because they went a ridiculous pace. Nell's Bells was up with the pace, raced keenly as well. That was never going to suit her, and she just tired late home. That was in the end of January. She's been freshened up. She's been targeted for this, I assume, for Donald McCain Jr., who's having a very good season himself this season. At 50-1, you'll get bookmakers paying loads of price. I think that's a cracking price, 50-1. It'll probably be one of my stronger selections for today. So thanks a lot for watching, and comment who's your nap for the day's one race. And for me, it's Pied Piper, but my each way play of the day is definitely Nell's Bells in the last. 50-1 looks a very good price for me in a race where the fun market principles probably don't convince me too much. So that rounds up the video. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We are closing in on 200. I'd be very appreciative if you could subscribe if you enjoyed the video. But apart from that, enjoy the day's racing, and I'll see you tomorrow for a preview of day 2.